I do not perceive my own best interests. Welcome, this is David. Thank you. So let's get into the intro for today's practical lesson. I do not perceive my own best interests. How could I recognize my own best interests when I do not know who I am? That's a very important question. Remember, we saw in two days ago, I believe it was, that the very fact that we're seeing the world that we see, is because we do not really know who we are. Therefore, now this is only taking it a step further and saying, how could you recognize your own best interest when you don't really know who you are? So, let's move on. What I think are my best interests would merely bind me closer to the world of illusions. I am willing to follow the guide God has given me to find out what my own best interests are, recognizing that I cannot perceive them by myself. Wow, this is literally telling you, let go of your agenda, because what you think is in your best interest is simply binding you further to the illusions that you have made up. So it's saying, just let go of your agenda, let go of your plans, just let them all go, and let the Creator, through the Holy Spirit. And by the way, let's redefine here Holy Spirit. We said that the course literally uses a lot of Christian terminology, but Holy Spirit, in other words, you can call it your higher self, the higher self, for example. I think you've heard of the higher self before. If you haven't, it's okay. You can stick to using the Holy Spirit. If you have heard of the higher self, it's a good. It kind of helps you relate, because, like, for me myself, I understand the higher self. I feel a better connection than the word Holy Spirit, because then that from growing up in Christianity, the idea of a Holy Spirit has always been separate entity that is floating around. That you know what I'm saying. So when I use the word higher self, I feel that it's a connection, that we are one. So whatever terms you want to use, I was just going to suggest that this is a guide that this paragraph is referring to. The guide that it's suggesting that you follow your higher self. Okay. In no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the results. Wow. And that is true, because quite often we think, oh, this terrible thing has happened to us, and then 2 years down the road when you look back, you're like, I'm glad it happened. I didn't know that then, but it's because it happened that now I'm in this place, So quite often we have what we think is good for us turns out to be not, and vice versa, quite often. Anyways, what you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable then that you will not serve your own best interests, yet they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. Let's slow down here. Course is saying that our perception determines what we do. If we see a loving world, we'll act loving. If we see a dangerous world, we'll kind of try and defend ourselves. Our perception determines what we do. Yeah? And then it's saying that the perception is already wrong. Okay? We already have it wrong. We don't have the right perception. Okay? Therefore, it is then suggesting that the next step is that because the perception is wrong, and because what you do is determined by your perception, then it is inevitable that you're not going to serve your own best interests. It's quite cool, isn't it? Very simple stuff. Yeah. Very simple stuff. Okay. If you realize that you do not perceive your own best interests, you could be taught what they are. But in the presence of your conviction that you do know what they are, you cannot learn. The idea for today is a step toward opening your mind so that learning can begin. This is very important. The minute if you keep defending your agenda, you're never gonna learn. You're not gonna, even if it's wrong, you're never going to be in a place where you can be corrected. But once you let go and stop, once you admit that you do not know your own best interest, and you open up and you say, fine, please teach me, then you will be assisted. Yeah. The exercises for today require much more honesty than you are accustomed to using. What a challenge. A few subjects, honestly and carefully considered in each of the 5 practice periods which should be undertaken today, will be more helpful than a more cursory examination of a large number. So just take a few, but get deep and get very honest with yourself. Don't take 100 things to examine, just take a few, and then get real and deep and honest with yourself about them. Anyways, so now the exercises are going to be below this video as always. I suggest, just read through the exercise material as it comes from the course and do the exercise. But I hope this video has really made one point clear, which I'd like to stress here. To me, the most important part of today's lesson is a couple of things. Number one, to start admitting that we do not know what our own best interests are for ourselves. We do not know. Admitting that. Very important step. Then opening up and stopping to defending it and opening it and being willing to be taught by one who knows. And that's not me, it's not your neighbor, it's not, any book or whatever. But your higher self, once you submit and let go, it will guide you. You don't need to fight it. Okay? So, or the Holy Spirit, whichever word you want to use there. But like I said, higher self, Holy Spirit, the same thing. The only thing is, look, this is the thing. And let me just quickly say this. You see, the Creator, as we've been learning throughout the course so far, does not recognize illusion. In other words, He cannot see what does not really exist, for that would be giving it existence. Do you understand that? It does not partake in illusions of separations. It does not. Now, the Holy Spirit was given to you, or your higher self was given to you, to be the bridge between the Creator, who does not share your illusions, and yourself, who is in the illusion world and is not experiencing the reality where the Creator lives in, or abides, or whatever. I don't know. It's strange. English sometimes doesn't have the right word for things, don't you think? So the Holy Spirit, or the higher self, is the bridge in between, so to speak. So I hope that kind of gives you a better way to visualize, how all these things are related. So thank you, and see you tomorrow.